Hi there, and you're welcome. So today what we're going to do is to create this character we can actually see right here, the SpongeBob, no surprise, and let's just get into it. So the first thing I'll do is to bring in a sketch I've already created. Now it's important to get your reference. SpongeBob is a very popular character, and you can always get a reference to the character and sketch it out. In this video, I'm just going to show you how you can create the vector lines, but I've already gone ahead and prepared the sketch. Don't worry, the sketch is going to be available so you can follow along and have fun and see how we can create that character using Affinity Designer. Also, if you want to support the channel, you can check out my Patreon page where I have the entire content there for free. You can also check my YouTube channel where you can actually find the same tutorial again for free. I'll have links both to the Patreon and the YouTube channel where you can have free access to all my courses and tutorials. And if you feel like supporting the channel, you can go ahead and provide a free donation. Apart from that, let's go ahead and begin. So first I'll go to File and then hit New. And what I'll do is to look for a nice paper type. So A4 is an international paper, so I'll just go ahead and select A4, and here on orientation I'll hit it to make sure it's on landscape. And finally, the color profile, I'll set this, the color format, I'll set this to CMYK in case I'd like to print this on a t-shirt just for personal use, not for commercial use, because obviously SpongeBob is a trademark character. So there we have it. So we have a nice little workspace here. We have this nice little area, but we don't have our artwork yet. So to import your artwork, just go to File and go to Place and look for a folder where you usually put your stuff. So I usually like scanning and putting my sketches here, so I'll just go down, and I believe I call it sponge_sketch. There it is. I'll just hit open and click on this area, and you can actually see it's actually brought it into here. Now my sketches are usually done on A4 paper, so that's why it actually matches up with this size. So real paper sketch on A4, scanned and then brought in here, and you can actually see it has this size. I believe the opacity is okay. It's not too dark and it's not too bright, but in case you want to put some levels effect and try to adjust this, what I suggest you do first is to create a background for your artwork. So I'll just go ahead and drag this rectangle tool, and I'll just drag a nice color like so, and I'll just make this a slightly little warm paper. Now if you want to see that value, the HSL value is 409387, and if you want to set this or type this in manually rather than guessing this, just click over here to this drop down, click on sliders, and you can put the values here. So that's 409387, and you can always slide this to make this brighter or darker. So I'll leave this here. This is going to be our background, so I'll set this back to the color wheel because I love the color wheel, and I'll just call that BG, hit enter, and I'll drag this and put this at the bottom. Now go back to our sketch there, and we can hit the padlock on our background layer to make sure we don't accidentally paint or draw or create vector shapes on this. So on our sponge sketch, I'll just hit Ctrl G to group that, and I'll just call that group sketch. If you quickly want to rename a group, I believe you can just double click on it and it change the name. So that's how I was able to change that name. So now that we have this sketch in a group, I can add these adjustments. So I can hit this adjustment and hit levels. So what levels is going to help you do right now is just to be able to set to make this a bit darker, or we can play with the gamma, right? You can make this very dark. So in case your lines are really faint like that, you can just drag them and make them slightly dark. And you can also change the output white level, so you can actually see, you can make that fainted or dim, or you can also drag the black level and pump that. So levels is a really good tool. It actually helps you, adjust your shape. And when you're done, it's only going to affect the content of this sketch. And what we can do is we can drag this down. You can see we can even use these sliders, opacity slider, to make sure you can see more of the background. At 0, we're seeing 100% of the background. At 100%, we're seeing 0 of the background. I'll just put that around 90, and I think that's okay. But just to make sure you're seeing this, I'll leave it at 90. I think 90 is totally fine. Okay, that's good. That's good for the setup. So what we want to do now is to start creating our shapes. And you can actually see he's made out of very nice, fun looking shapes. So to do that, I will go over here to the ellipse tool, because I'm looking at starting with the eyes, and with the ellipse tool selected, you can see the fill and stroke are set to 0. Yours might have a value, but I'll just go to the stroke, and I'll go to color and make sure this is on saturation 100%. Basically this means this is fully black. And then for the width, I'll set this to 1.8, and we can quickly test this. To test this, let's try drawing this little pupil like that, and I'll go over here. You see the fill came out, so I'll just hit this, and we don't have a fill. And we can leave the fill. Actually, we can set the fill to 100% black as well, so we can just see that black fill on the eyes. I'll go over to the navigator and tear it out by clicking on the name and just dragging it over here. I just like having it like that, and I also like to have the layers just physically in front of me like that, because I really like to rename my layers when I work. So we can actually see we just have that pupil shape. It has a fill and a stroke that's the same color, so it's not a problem. If we just click away, you can see what I mean, like that. So alright, great. So now that we have one of that pupil, we can do things like adjust it just to make it match. And I'll hold Control and Shift while we're selecting this and drag. So it means you're creating a duplicate if you hold Control and Shift. And I'll try as much as I can to just make this match up. So we can go back to our sketch and try and just draw this down, or this can be underneath like that. So let's go ahead and create the eyeball shape. And while we're at it, we can start giving these things their names directly so we don't get confused. So we'll just say pupil underscore L, and here I'll just say pupil underscore right, just for naming sake. So let's go back to our tool and let's just drag a shape here. To get rid of the fill, you can use the slash key, or you can just go click on the fill and then hit this button here. Either way, use the slash key. It's actually nice. So we just drag this here, and actually notice 1.8 is super thin. So let's see if we can get away with I think 2.8, or let's just use 3. I think 3 is super fine. It's not too small and thick. That's okay. So let's drag another shape again. Remember, I have the ellipse tool selected, and I'll just drag and create this nice little shape for our character's eyes, and make sure it just matches our sketch. So now you can actually see I'm trying to just pull up this edge like that. So to have more precision, first we need to convert this to a curve. So if you're on the move tool, which is V, or which is this black arrow here, click convert to curves. When you do that, you can now go to the node tool, and with the node tool you can now begin to drag specific points just to make your shape actually match up like that. And you can actually see what happens when you do that. You can hold Alt and click on a Bezier handle to only affect a specific curve. So I'm holding here, and if I drag this handle while I'm holding Alt, it will only affect that specific curve. So that's one way you can create a nice little difference there. Now this is not looking at, this is not a perfect circle, right? You can see that. I might just undo some of those slight changes, and I'll just leave it like that because why not? So next, let's create his little nose. To do that, I'll hit the pen tool, and I'll just draw a straight line like that, and that's it. So what I'll do next is to go back to the node tool, click the center, and just drag this shape right here. Drag this point, use the Bezier handle, and try to just adjust this. Let's drag that point, pull this down. You just play around with it until you have something you're happy and you're satisfied with. So I'll just leave it right here like that. Why not? If we want this to align perfectly, we could drag a ruler and place it here, so we can see that we need to drag this down a little bit to make sure it's actually just on this line. And if we're done, what we can do is go to view, and we can say click the show guides, and we have the guides away. Now you actually know the nose is a bit pinched along the edge. To fix that, all we need to do is to go into our shape tool, or stroke rather, and then hit on the pressure, and we can add a point at the center. So I'll click the first point and click the last point, and I can just drag these two, and what you actually notice, it will thin these 2 points like that. And while I selected the first point, I held shift to select the second point so I can have both points selected. And what I can do now is to just bump up the size a little bit so you can see that difference. So you can see there's a little pinch along that edge like so. So I'll just drag this here and move this to the right a bit, and I set the size to about 4.2. If I like this profile, or if you want to save this, go back to the pressure and click save profile. So now this nice parabolic shape is saved, and you can always reset your brush to another size. So what do we work on next? Let's try this nice cute little spongy googly eyes. To do that, we'll just go to our marquee tool and drag a nice little marquee shape. Now there's a problem because this shape is following along with that profile we created last time we created the nose. So let's go over here and go to pressure and hit reset. So now you can see, let's set this back to 3. So now you can see we have our default shape without any of that profile path applied to it. And I'll just click this, drag that, and make this a little bigger because I just want to bump it up a bit. And now for the right eye, so I can just start naming this, right? Because you can see I have a lot of shapes here and I don't know what they are no names, so I just want to make sure everything is named properly as we go because it'll be much more organized. So I'm just going to say left underscore eye, and this is the nose obviously. So this is our right pupil, so I'll just call this eye underscore right, and here I'll just call this eye underscore left. So let's group everything on the left together. So I'll hold control, and then I have the eye left, and then I have the pupil left. So these three need to be in the same group, so I'll hit Control G, and I'll just call that the left underscore eye. So simply, if I turn this off, you can see I'm actually turning off that left eye. And actually notice this needs to be a bit elliptical like that, as it makes it more nicer. Right, so you can actually turn this off to see how you are working on. That's super great. So for the right eye, so let me just add the big eyeball here, and then once I'm done with that, I can just add that to the eye group. So I'll just drag this here and make sure it matches up like that. I think that's totally fine, and I'll just call this the right underscore eye, and I'll group these three together. So I'll hold Control, click these three, and I'll hit Control G, and I'll just call that the right underscore eye. And if you're feeling super ambitious, you can click the left eye group, hold Control, click the right eye group, hit Control G, and just call that the eyes. So now we have a main group that has two subgroups that have components together, and you can nest your work like that. Before we go further, let's hit save, and I'll just call this SpongeBob underscore 01, because that's our like basic SpongeBob start. So that's fine. We have our nose and eyes covered. Let's create this nice little shape over here, which represents SpongeBob's lashes. Very funny, very basic shapes. So I'll hit the pen tool, which is P, and I'll just draw a nice boxy little shape like that. You can actually see there's nothing complicated here. I'll just use the pen tool P to draw a nice boxy shape. Now I'll hit the node tool, and I'll try to just bend this to adjust it like that. And finally, I'll go to the fill, and I'll just fill this with a black color. Basic shape, nothing complicated. So let's do that here. Click this point. You first create a nice little square, and once you're done with that square, go back to the node tool, and you can then adjust this shape to make it a bit curvy, and you can see we're done. Let's do a final one. I'll hit P, draw a rectangular shape first. Not worried about the curves. Now I can just hold Control. If you hold Control, you jump to the node tool without needing to go over here. So while I'm holding Control, I'll just drag this and push this to the left a bit, like that. And you can see we have that nice little shape. We didn't really get this one, so I'll just hit Control, click this point, and just drag this up here, like that a bit. And you can see we have these three shapes all created. Now all we need to do is just adjust them to make sure they're standing right here like that. And I'll drag this one, click away, and drag this one to make sure they're just touching the edge. And that's it. You can see how simple that is. If we want to group this, I'll just hold Control and click these three, hit Control G, and I'll call that left lashes. Very basic, very fun, very basic. Don't be scared of the program, right? So I hit P to jump to the pen tool, and I'll create a nice little rectangle shape like that. Very basic. I'll switch over to the node tool and just push this and push this also like that. And I'll just slide this up a bit to make sure it's resting there. And I'll just do the same thing here. So I'm just creating a nice little rectangle shape. And I'm adjusting the edges like that. And I'll hit the pen tool, and I'll do just do one more here, a rectangle, and then we could just begin to play around with the edges. I'll just push this here like that, and see, we're done with the lashes. So I'll click this, hold Control, and click these three, the second one, and hit Control G, and I'll call that the right underscore lashes. All right, good. So now let's move over to more. So I think I put this accidentally in the group, so just drag it out and place it out there. And for the sketch, we just lock this layer. So we have our left, right lashes, and then we have our eyes. So let's look at the general shape here. So a quick one we could do is the teeth, because it looks very basic. So it's just a geometric form. So I'm just clicking away like that. The fill is going to be white, and I'll leave the stroke so we can see we have one of the tooth. So I'll hit the pen tool by hitting P, and I'll do the other one like that. So if you don't complete a shape and you try to draw again, it will keep on drawing. So to complete a shape, you'll just click on the last point you started. Now sometimes you don't necessarily want to close a shape, you just want a little line. Let's say for some reason you want a shape like this, right? But you don't want to close this path. All you need to just hit Control and click away, and you're done with the shape. You can see this curve now has been registered in your layer group. And if at any point you need to continue drawing, go back to your pen tool, hold Control, click one of these points, and then click on the other one and click away. So now we've completed that shape. I know it sounds complicated. It might be, especially when you're starting, but trust me, after a couple of hours of using the tool, you'd actually see that it's not a big deal. So now that we have the tooth, let's just name them. Let's group them together and name them. So I'll hold Control and hit Control G, and I'll call that tooth, like so. And you can see we're almost done with our basic face sketch. Now SpongeBob obviously has a lot of other body parts, but we just want to focus on the face to keep it like super straight and super simple. But it's the same technique you will use to create the entire character. Let's create this nice little smile he has right here. So I'll click over here and click here, and I'll move over to the node tool and just drag this, push it over here. Now you can see it's coming with the fill. We don't want the fill, so let's just hit slash or go over here and click no fill so we can get rid of that fill. And I'll zoom in to that section and zoom in again to that section. So what I want to do is to taper this edge. Remember, we have saved a preset. So if I hit this, you can see if I click away, you can see we have a nice little tapered edge, which is really nice. So I'll just try to adjust this to match our design, and we have this right here. We could just do the same thing here. So I'll hit the pen tool and draw a nice little line, and then I could just drag it a bit. Now you can see we have a nice little curve. So that's another trick with the pen tool. If you draw points like that, you can draw straight lines, or if you click a point, click on the second point, hold and drag, you can actually create a curve, and you can always move these points around. If I switch this to the node tool, so I can create a lot of nice little curvy shapes, play with the Bezier handles to, you know, create anything we want to create. I'll just get rid of these two, this one and this one, because I don't need it. So delete, bye bye. So we got part of our smile right there, and I think this one needs to be slightly curvy just to make it more interesting. So I'll just drag this point here. So you can see we have part of our smile. So what do we do next? Let's do the mouth shape. So again, if you're new to the pen tool, polygonal shapes are going to help you a lot. Just think about how you can simplify the shape into a polygon, and then once you have a polygon, you can smoothen that polygon. For instance, this smile is just a very big triangle. I'll show you that. 1, 2, 3, and let's close it. That's all we need to create this smile. Now it's using that profile, so let's go over to pressure and reset this size. And what I'll do now is to switch over to the node tool, and we can begin adjusting this. Sorry, I'm not on the node tool, I'm still on the transform tool. Hit the node tool and drag over here till you see a nice little horizontal line, and just drag that. So now at this edge, what I'll do is to go over here and convert this to a smooth curve. And what this will do is to create Bezier handles, and I can drag the handle to the left and drag the handle to the right. Okay, what did I just do here, and what does that mean? So if we create a shape with the pen tool, so I'll just create a nice little polygon like that. Remember, if I hit Control, I'm on the node tool, I can click any of these points. Now these points are sharp. If you actually look at this, this is a sharp triangle point. I want this point to be smooth. So if I am on this point and select that point, I can just go to Convert and hit Convert. You can see it's made that point smooth. I can click this point, hold Shift, click this point and hit that. You can see now we have a smooth shape. So basically that's what I did. We had a sharp triangle, I made this edge smooth, and by doing that I got Bezier handles, and I can drag the Bezier handle, or I could just go over here and make any shape I want. Totally awesome, nice little trick, very, very helpful. So now let's do the tongue. So to do the tongue, I could pretty much repeat the same process. I could start from here, create a nice little peaky kind of polygonal shape, and I'll close that shape. So once I've closed that, I'll go over to the node tool, I'll drag this down, I'll click on this point here, hold Shift, click this one, hold Shift, click this one, and I'll just convert everything to a smooth curve. And you can see just by doing that we have a nice little tongue, but we might need to adjust those points. So I'm just dragging this, and I believe that's totally fine. We just drag this down a bit and drag this down as well, so it aligns and matches up with our initial design. Now if we were to fill this with a color, let me just go ahead and select a color. So if you have the wheel opened up, you can select a nice little color and make sure you're selecting that shape. So I'll be on the curve and I'll select this nice little shape. You can see we have a pinky tongue color. So now you can see this shape is outside. If I want to mask this shape with the mouth, I'll just click the curve, drag, move it to the right a bit till you see it creates a nice little blue rectangle that has shifted to the right. If I release that, it means this tongue is now inside this mouth. So, and if we use the move tool and move the tongue anywhere, it's still going to be only clipped into this mouth. So that we just created what's called a clip, and we're just clipping this shape. We also want the teeth to be clipped within the mouth, so we'll click on our tooth, drag it, and then go over here towards the right and release that. So if we move our tooth up or down, you can actually see we're clipping our tooth in the mouth like that. It's out and it's back in there. So that's one nice little neat trick. And with that, we've even started adding our fill. I think I like this, so I'll just go ahead and continue. Now we have this nice little shape for Sponge's cheeks, but this shape is needed so that we can have a nice little fill around his face, and that's going to be the yellow little fill part right there. So we actually need to create this part. So let's go ahead and see how we can do that, and then we can organize and rearrange. So this is going to be part of the smile. So I'll just call them wrinkles. I'll group them together with the nose. So I'll just say Control G. I'll say nose and wrinkles, like that. So I have nose and the wrinkles, and what I'll do now is just close everything, because I want to concentrate and create this nice little shape right here, this one that goes around right here. So I think we can start with this nice little shape, and then I'll just show you what I mean. So I'll click here, and I'll click here, and I'll hold Control and click. So it is with this curve I'll use to create this shape right here. So let's hit Control, and with the node tool we could just pull and begin to just adjust this shape like that. So I'll just go over here, pull this up, and then drag this right here. So you can see we've created that nice little shape like that. Now our fill is distracting us. We'll just hit slash to get rid of the fill, or if you want, you can click fill, go over here, you get the drill. We've done this a lot of times, and I'll just zoom in a little bit. So now we have this nice little curve for his cheeks, and the reason why I'm separating this is because I want this color to be slightly different from this other curve I want to draw that will represent this smiley section of Sponge's face right here. And to do that, let's create the second one, or to keep it consistent, I'll hold Control, hit this one, hit Control J. That's to duplicate. So you can see on your layers you have two cheeks. So I'll hit the pen to, the move tool, hit the move tool, and then flip this. I'll hold Shift and drag this to the right like that. That obviously doesn't align and match up, so let's just drag this and place this over here. Alright, so basically you can actually see there's an error with the sketch, because this chin is a bit larger than that chin, but no problem, we'll just leave it like that and then create this nice little shape that's going to be behind this smile like that. So there's a nice little yellow part that's going to be around here. So let's create that nice little yellow shape right there. So we can start from here, right? And then click here, the center. We'll end it slightly over here. And to create this nice little curvy mouth part, we could just go, we could actually close our shape like that, right? Just a nice little triangle. And what we can do now is just use our node tool, click the center here and drag it. You can just see how we're doing that, and just drag this down a bit and drag this down a bit like that. And actually notice that we already have a shape for the mouth. Let's just go ahead and where are you? Nose and wrinkles, eyes. So this is the mouth, so I'll just call that mouth. So we have our mouth shape, we have our little space here. I don't even know what to call this, so I'll just call this let's just say a lip, even though that's not the lip. I'll just call it lip. If I have a constructive name for that, I'll call it the constructive name. So we'll click on these two curves, hold Shift, and then group them together, and I'll just call that cheeks like that. So let's bring everything back. It's going to look really scary and messy right now because everything's all merged together and it makes you seem a bit dizzy, but we'll just actually use that. So what we want to do now is to start adding the flats, which is actually the most interesting and the most fun part of the entire step, is when you're adding the colors that make SpongeBob. And I believe we're actually missing out on something. I believe we need to add the SpongeBob has a little spots around his cheeks, like around here. You can actually see we included that in the sketch. So let's quickly do that. And to do that, we'll just add some nice little ellipses. So I'll just draw one like that, and draw another one and another one just around here, and make sure they're varying sizes. And I'll go over here and I'll add these nice little spongy, nice looking spots around SpongeBob's face. So you can see there, that's super cool. Now I just want a fill for these. I don't want a stroke. So let's just use a fill and fill everything. Can we fill them all together? So I'll click this, hold shift, click the last one, go to the fill, hit this black, go to stroke and say no stroke. So I believe we need to get rid of the first one, stroke, as well. So that's some group treatment we have there. So let's drag over here. You can see we have that, and let's just call all these. This, I'm holding shift. If I click the first one, hold shift, click the last one, you're selecting everything, and I hit Control G, and I'll call this SP spots. Yeah, that's not a difficult name. So yeah, we have these spots now. So you can see we have virtually all our shapes. So let's start with the eyeball. The eyeball is going to be white, right? So let's click on that like that. And then for the fill, so if you have the color swatch open, you can just drag a color and you can actually see you have that color. But we have a little problem here. The problem we have is that, and I think I'm not going to use 100% white. There's just some of that gray in there. So that's going to be our eye color. Let's drag this up a bit. So if I go over here to the sliders, I'm using 87 for the lightness. So that's what we're just changing. So let's set this to, we can type in 87. So that's what I'm using. So you can see we have a little problem. We'll fix that real quick. Don't panic. It just means that this is at the bottom, and because I'm filling that, you can actually see the pupil. If I turn this off and turn this off, let's bring this back on. Right, so it's filling the pupil. So for the pupil, let's try this value. So I'm using full black for the pupil. So if we bring this back on, you can see we have that black. And then for the eye shape, it's a super blue. So I'll just go back to the wheel and let's just select a nice little cyany kind of blue like that. I'll just turn this off so we can see this properly. So I'm using and click on that eye. So yeah, so this value isn't bad. So let's see if we go to the slider, that's 202, 56, 62. 202, 56, 62. Now the way this is arranged is the pupil needs to be above the eye shape. So let's just drag the pupil on top. So we have our socket at the bottom. Then we have our left eye and pupil, right? So that's how we can create that little eye. And I noticed the lines here are a bit thin. So I'll just drag this up a bit like that. I think about 4.6. So I'll quickly do that here and change this to 4.6 and make sure everything is like, you know, super organized like we have on our left eye. So we have our large shape. It's supposed to be at the bottom. Then we have our pupil. Then we have the right eye shape. So to select this color, we don't need to start going over here. We can hit the eyedropper tool and then click on the color inside, and you can see we have that color already. That's one cool way to do it. That's a super fun way to actually do that. And for our pupil, so you can always make adjustments when you've created your shape. If you quickly need to select any shape, go back to your tool and select that shape, and we can start playing with things around. I just want to make this slightly big like that. Same thing with you. Just make it slightly big like that. I believe it's actually more fun when this is slightly increased. You can actually see that, you know, color popping out like that. So let's do the same for the eyes. So I'll click here at this eye and hit the eyedropper tool and click this guy. So we haven't organized this properly. So for the right eye, I believe this is the yeah, that's it. So I'll hit the eyedropper tool and sample this color, and then for the pupil, I'll sample this color. So you can actually see we've done a nice little color here for the eyes, which is super nice. And I'll also slightly bump the let's go over here, the shape. So for the stroke, I just want to bump it up a little bit, and the same thing for this stroke. I'll just bump it up a bit till I'm happy with how it looks. Yeah, I think that's fine. So slight variation. You can always stylize this, but I'll just leave it like that. So for our nose, now our nose is obviously super thin because we have stylized it a bit. So I'll just bump this up so you can see we have that nice little nose path there. And we'll take our mouth. Let's also increase that a bit like that so we have some nice little thick lines. I'll go over to our left chin, do that as well. Go over to our right chin and do that as well. And now we can go to our smile. Our little wrinkles here. This one, just bump it up a little bit. Nice. And we can bump this up and just bump this up slightly a bit. Yeah, I think that's super cool. We also have our teeth as well. So we can go to the stroke. Now we can just bump the stroke like that. And then finally we have our tongue. So I just realized the 3 point is slightly low. And for our tongue, I think we could, let's see if we make this point sharp. Yeah, I think it's better that way. Just to make this point a bit sharp, and we just make this more parabolic. But no problem, we just have that nice little shape right there. And let's start adding our fill. So we want to, I think we have this nice little shape. This shape is going to be hidden. We won't necessarily see this shape. So, but what I want to do is to set a fill for this. So I'll go to the color and let's look for a nice little yellow. I think it's not bad. Yeah, I think that's fine. So I'm using 51, 82, 52. So that's the color, 51, 82, 52. Now I'll go to the nose and I'll use the eyedropper tool and sample this same color. Now the nose is behind the mouth, so I'll just drag the nose to make sure it's above the mouth. If we do this properly, we can put this at the top, so the nose is topmost above everything else. So you can actually see by doing that. Let's go to view and let's turn off our guides. You can see just by doing that we have kind of like arranged it like that, and we can see this nice little shape like that. So let's go ahead and fill up the cheeks. So I'll just do this, select this cheek, and I'll use the eyedropper tool and select this color just to fill the cheeks like that. And let's select this other one, and I'll use the eyedropper tool and select this color. So you actually see we have this shape for this cheek like that. So let's see the mouth. Let's fill up the mouth with a color inside. So I'll select the mouth shape, and for the color, let's open up the wheel. Let's look for a nice little dark color like that. Let's move that over here. I think, yeah, that's not too bad. Yeah, I think that's totally fine. That's a fine, nice little color we have there. Now what we're left with is how do we fix? We have two problems here. First, we can move the mouth to be on top. If I drag it over here, so you can actually see our mouth is here, but we can't see our wrinkles. So I'll make sure the wrinkles are right here. So our nose, then the wrinkles, then the mouth little shape. Now this thing we call lip, we can just drag it and make sure it fills this edge like that. But you can see what happens. It's actually covering our character, right? It's covering our character. So what we need to do is to make sure that these cheeks are organized properly. And to fix that, let's just put the cheeks to be on top the lip shape. So we'll just drag this and place this on top like that. Now we can go to the lip and use our node tool, and we can just drag it to cover up this area like that. And now you can see our spots are hitting. We need to put our spots above our cheek shape like that, and you can see we have our little spot shape. So let's just click away and see what we have here. So whoops, I think I accidentally added a point I don't need. So let's just zoom in and see how we can get rid of a little funny things happening here. We'll just make sure this is here like that, and we can push this up as much as we need to, and then drag this over here, and we can take our cheek shape and just put it up here like that, just to cover up that nice little spot. Let's go over here and do the same. So let's make sure we are selected this, and let's just move that up a bit like that. And let's take our cheek shape and just place it nicely around here. Now for the cheek shape, I just want to give it a nice little different color just to make this unique. So I'll just go over to the stroke and make sure I'm around some reddish brown color like that. And I'm trying to look for some nice dark little orangey color. I think that's not bad. I think that's okay. So let's look at the HSL. You can actually see it's 5645, 145. That's what we're using. So let's go over to the other cheek and click on that. And I'll just use the eyedropper tool and sample this color because I'm trying to tell the tool, hey, now it's actually doing it for the wrong object. So let me show you why. So if I click on this, I want to go to the stroke. So if I go to the stroke, I can go to swatches, and this is going to show me a list of the current colors I created. So the last new color I created was the color for the cheek. So if you select the stroke and go to swatches, you can just easily pick that color. And you can see we can play around with all the colors we used to create this SpongeBob awesome character. And you can see how it's looking super nice. Let's just see this eye over here. Okay, we can leave it at that. Nothing, we don't want to over create this guy. So what we can do with the mouth shape is, if I click the mouth right now on this fill, we want to add a little depth to this mouth just to show you that, hey, this is actually a space that has depth to it. And one cool way to do that is to hit the fill tool right there, and we can drag a little shape like that. And now you can see what's happening. If you actually look a bit far away, if I zoom out a little bit and just drag this down, if I pull this up, you can see we have a nice little gradient that's actually telling us that this mouth has a little depth to it like that. And one thing I also like to do is I'm just seeing these eyes, the ones inside are a bit small, so I'll just make this slightly big, make this one slightly big as well, and I'll do the same here. I'll just pull it up a bit, and this one, okay, it's making it difficult to select. Alright, good. So I'll just bump that one a bit too. And there you have it. So now that we've done that, let's just see everything we've created. We have the nose, everything grouped together and named. This is the wrongest name here. It's not the lip, but it's part of the face actually. So let's just call this face. So that's part of the face. So now that we've done all that, let's hold shift and click the last spot over here, and we can hit Ctrl G to group everything together. We'll just call this, I'll just call that SpongeBob, like that, just for fun. We have a nice little SpongeBob character, and he's has that tongue. Now this tongue needs to be maybe a bit pinky like that, so I'll drag this down. So it's a HSL 07264, so I just adjusted that. So before we bounce out, I just want to show you a nice little trick you can actually do. If we have a curve and we wanted to break out sections of the curve, how do we do that? For instance, you can see we have this single curve. What if I want to add an effect where we don't complete the lines? Now, when creating cartoon characters, you find out that's really the case. There are a lot of instances where you find out some lines are hidden. So let's see how we can do that. Let's use a practical example. So I have this nice little line here, and I want to break this line into two. So to do that, hit the node tool, and you can actually see these actions here. We have close curve, we have smooth curve, we have join curves right here. Let's add a point here. So now we have 3 points, 1, 2, and 3. So I want to break this section here. So if I click on this point, I can go over here and it says break curve. So what happens is, you can see we have two curves now. If I drag this, you see I have one and I have another one, right? I have two curves. Now if this fill is a specific color, you can change this color to have the color of another fill and it will appear hidden. For instance, I can sample this color like that. Let's go back here. Sorry, I'll go over here, go to the stroke, go to my swatches, and I can sample this yellow color. And if I drag this yellow over here, just place it anywhere. Sorry, I'll use move tool and just move it over here. It's actually hidden, we can't see it, it's there. And to prove that to you, I can change it to any color. Let's go to the stroke, and you can see it's there, but once it has that same color, it's actually blended and we can't see it. We'll use that trick to create, I'll just delete these two. We'll use that trick to create this nice little section here. So if I go to the cheeks, I'll add a point here, just like that. So now I have this point, we click on the shape, you can see we have another additional point. So this is 1, 2, and this is the closing point. So I'll select this point, this one, and I'll go over here and say break curve. So if I break that curve, it's actually going to, you know, mess with our color here. So what we can do is to take that part we broke, this one, so you can see it's no longer there. And for the fill, I'll set it to no fill. For the stroke, I'll give it, let's go to our swatches and give it this nice little yellow color like there. And what we can do now is just create a nice little patch that goes around here, and that patch is going to have this same color. And to do that, I'll just hit the pen tool and I'll say no stroke, but for the fill, I'll use this yellow fill, and all I have to do now is to create that nice little patch around and close this, and this needs to be behind. So nice little trick, it's hidden. Let's see that, and we need to push this down a bit. So there you have it. So it's a nice little trick. Let's just zoom out and see how that is. So you can see we have this part that just shows a nice little cheek and shows it's not complete. So it depends on what you want to do. If you really like that, one thing we can do is to go over to the cheeks. Now you can see we have the left side. We can turn this off, and then now that we have this shape, and this shape, let's group them together, and I'll call this the right underscore cheeks. So we have the right cheeks, so I'll just duplicate that, and I'll call this the left left cheek. I think it's a single K, not double. So with that, I'll go over to the move tool, flip this, hold shift, and I'll just drag everything towards the right like that. And it needs to be a bit over here like that. And if we hide our sketch, you can see we have a nice little character that's just happy there, and we have, you know, turned off some of those edges. Now the edge trick might be a bit confusing. If you don't want to use it, that's totally fine, but it's just a way to add a nice little variation to our character. And finally, what we can do is to give these cheeks the same color as this curvy part, because why not? Why do we have that over there when we can't really give this cheeks some nice little color? So let's go to the spots, and for the fill, let's just hit the fill, and I believe it's this color, right? Okay, yeah, good, that's it. And we can always even make it a variation like that. It's always nice adding a little variation to your colors. So there you have it. It's the same. So this is 1670 56 for those spots. That's 1670 56, and that's one great advantage of grouping things. You can see, because we grouped this, we have actually created a way to affect everything that's underneath that character. So we can actually just use that to create that nice little fill. And with that, we can basically call our SpongeBob face character done. I know it was a little hard to I know it was a little bit hard and tricky to actually do this, but you can actually see how this works right here. So we can always turn off our background color and change our background color to any color we want, and you can see we have a nice little SpongeBob face color. And just by making this yellow, you can see we actually have that color. We can sample this color, and you can see we have SpongeBob like just looking at that others like that, and because he has a square face. So yeah, thank you very much for watching. Like I said, everything is going to be available on my Patreon, on my YouTube. You can drop a little like, drop a little comments just to support this. Hope you like this. Till I see you in the next tutorial. Peace. Thank you for watching.